The voting age should be 0. This is going to be a interesting video.
Children should have the right to vote. And
Nope. Hard disagree. I would say there is a scenario where the voting age should be raised. I would say there's a scenario where, like, I shouldn't be able to vote till I'm 21. I would be able to argue that better than children being able, a 3-year-old, they're just going to vote whatever their fucking parents do.
I mean that a toddler should be able to toddle into a voting center in a national election, cast a real ballot, and have that vote counted.
Argue it? You want me to argue? Okay, I'm not saying I personally believe this, but it's a hell of a lot easier to argue that 18-year-olds shouldn't be able to vote and 21-year-olds should be the voting age, for the sole fact that you have had no life experience. You have maybe held one job. You've never lived in the economy. You likely have never paid insurance, understood what it's like to be a working class American outside of a part-time job. You're probably in high school, right? Depending on when you turn 18. Yeah, some people turn 18 and the first time they actually vote is 20. But like, I voted when I was 18. I didn't have life experience. When you're 21, maybe in college, maybe you weren't. You've had some life experience, whether it be in a trade, in the job field. You're learning to pay your own rent, pay your own bills, transfer insurances, right? You've gone to the DMV. You understand base adulting shit. Not to the fullest extent. I'm 23 and I still don't understand a lot of it. But like, I've paid taxes. I've paid insurance bills. You don't do that when you're a teenager. Even when you're 19, 20, maybe even 21, your parents do it for you 99% of the time. Not everybody. I know there's people that are going to comment this maybe in chat or in the YouTube comments and say, I've been living alone since I was 17. I've had to do this and that. I'm saying the majority of Americans didn't have or won't have to actually do adulting stuff until they're, legal drinking age, generally. So I'm not saying that's what it should be, but it's a hell of a lot easier to argue.
Just the same as any other.
Another vote for Mr. Beast.
I really believe this, and by the end of this video, I think you will too.
No, I will not. Now, I'm hard pushing against this. I have made the argument that I think there should be a test to determine whether or not you should be allowed to vote based off of world and political knowledge. I think we got to get rid of gerrymandering so people's votes actually matter. And then I think you actually have to pass a test. And I'm not saying like I'm going to be a genius that passes it. I might not pass it. But I think the majority, like the bottom 40 or 50% of American voters don't understand politics at all. And I'm not saying that I know I'm a liberal. I'm not saying that of just Republicans. I'm saying that of everyone. I understand that's no longer a democracy, but like it would be a controlled democracy in the sense of like, you're not letting people vote that don't understand. I always go back to like the Socrates quote where, democracy was originally starting. And it's like, if you had to pick a captain for a ship, would you rather have the crewmen pick the captain or random citizens that live on the land? Like, yes, you're a citizen of that country, but if you don't understand how the government works, how are you capable of picking somebody to run that country?
Greetings, children and adult oppressors. I'm your host, Silly Conversations. In most countries, you need to be 18 years old to vote in
What country do you need to be 25? What country do you need to be 25 to vote? I need to look that up. That's way longer. Oh, wait. No, this is kind of easy to guess. Somebody already looked it up, you asshat. I know you Googled it. The UAE. You have to be... Wait, what does it say? You have to be at least 25 for membership of the Electoral College, which consists of a significant minority of all citizens. Oh, shit. So not everybody can even vote. Singapore, 21. Lebanon, Oman, Kuwait, Samoa, Tonga. What one was 16? Ecuador, Argentina, Brazil, Cuba, Austria, Malta, Isle of Man. Damn, dude. I feel like that's crazy though. Like that's my argument for like why I was saying like you have to be 21. I mean, there's 7 countries where you have to be 21. But it's like, dude, when you're in high school, like I voted when I was 18, bro. Like even 19. Like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
national election.
You're a fucking teenager. You're an adult, but you're still an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, you're a legal adult, but you're a dumbass.
And there are no countries where the voting age is lower than 16. Since this is such a universally accepted rule, we should start by discussing some of the obvious reasons for why children should not be given the right to vote. Number 1, children aren't smart enough to understand political policy and decide which politicians to support. This is related to number 2, children don't have the emotional maturity for voting, and they'll be easily swayed by propaganda. Number 3, voting rights for children would cause division within family units, and besides, their family members with voting rights can already represent their interests. And number 4, children...
No, I don't think this would happen. I don't think this would happen at all. He's saying that, wait, is this why this shouldn't happen? What was he saying? Hold up.
Number 1, children aren't smart enough to understand political policy.
I agree with that. They're not smart enough. They can be easily swayed. But you could say that of regular Americans as well. That's what he's going to say. He's going to go the voting age should be 0 because all of these problems we already have. Like, the majority of people aren't smart enough to vote and are easily swayed by fake propaganda. Your grandparents have likely been convinced that Joe Biden is a lizard person from AI. Or anything of that matter. Like, propaganda on Facebook is crazy. I would say this one I actually disagree with as well. I would agree with him. Like, this wouldn't cause division between people. Parents would just instill their values on their children and force them to vote for who they want.
And besides, their family members with voting rights can already represent their interests. And number 4, children don't actually want to be able to vote, and this isn't a real issue. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I got my notes mixed up. Those were all actual, real reasons given to justify denying women the right to vote.
Oh my God, no way.
That's right. You've been tricked into agreeing with sexism. But children actually aren't as smart or mature as adults. So, that's obviously not true for all children and all adults. But even if it is true on average, we still run into a pretty serious threshold problem. If a pair of identical twins are born 10 minutes either side of midnight on the annual voter registration deadline, then there will be an election where one twin gets to vote and the other doesn't. For the younger twin, that means years of working, paying taxes and obeying the law as an adult with no democratic representation, despite being the same biological age as their older sibling who got to vote. Okay, but
that is, he's gonna, I'm the guy that he's making fun of right now. I was gonna say, yeah, but like, this is such a niche scenario where you'd be on the day of voting, your one twin's old enough, but you're not.
That's a pretty weird edge case. Not really. In a large democracy like the US, hundreds of thousands of 17-year-olds will miss any given voter registration deadline.
I will say that bit is weird, where there was a point in time where a lot of my friends, when I voted, because I graduate, like I was 18 in 2020. Like I turned 18 in 2020. There were kids that I went to high school with that I knew, went to school with, same classes, same grades, same activities. They were 17 and they couldn't vote. Like that is, I think that was weird. Where, because we're still the same, even though you're like 3 months younger than me, we're in the same grade. I think that's where it gets a little muddled. But even then, that you can't use that as a reasoning to say 2-year-olds should vote.
By only a few days or weeks. Besides, intelligence in the population is thought to lie on an approximately normal distribution. That's a bell curve that looks like this. Most people are in the middle, pretty average. Some are smart and some are not so smart. Even if humans experienced a sudden massive spike in brain power on the day they turn 18, which of course doesn't actually happen, in big countries there would still be millions of 16 and 17-year-olds who are smarter than the average adult. So...
Oh my God, stop. What, by just sheer IQ? I think then you're going into like, because I'm not arguing that there aren't high schoolers that are smarter than me. Like there's high schoolers, there's people in my chat that are 5 years younger than me that are smarter than me. But I think it's just like, not even just intelligence, it's just life experience. I don't know. That is weird.
Why don't we just move the voting age to 16? That's not the point. no matter where you put the voting age, there are still going to be
wherever the line is, there's going to be an individual group of people that are still smarter than the average.
millions of people who can't vote, despite being smarter and more mature than millions of people who can. If your plan is to prevent dumb and immature people from voting, then an age cutoff incorrectly deprives millions of people of their right to vote, which is fundamentally wrong and undemocratic. Also, what do you even mean by maturity? The state, fact, or period of being mature. Oh gee, thanks Google. Cambridge Dictionary, what do you got? The quality of behaving mentally and emotionally like an adult. Okay, so the logic would be that children can't vote because they're not mature, and being children makes them not mature by definition. Cool. This argument that Group X don't have the right emotions to vote properly was super effective when applied against women, because it's so vaguely defined that it's impossible to disprove. Of course, in practice, one of the main reasons that many men didn't support giving women the right to vote was that it just seemed silly. Like, women voting?
Well, it seems silly, but it would also remove their power, right? That's like a common thing, even that's happening in the country right now, where a lot of people want to go back to traditional values, but a lot of the people that say that are white, straight men that are losing the unfair edge that we have had for the history of this country, where I'm already at an advantage being born a white guy, right? And now that's still here, but it's getting a little less. And there's people that are upset about that, right? And so from their point of view, they're going, this is unfair. I'm the one that's getting diminished. But no, it's actually evening it out a little bit. But they want it to be back where it was, where it's like, hey, you know, you're actually still at an advantage. You just want that unfair edge. A literacy test to vote would literally be segregation. Sounds okay on paper, but in practice would be a way to deter lower income people to vote. Well, I mean, you don't want to get me on the idea of literacy. The idea that like 21% of Americans adult Americans are illiterate just doesn't even seem real to me. Like 1 in 5 people can't read. I don't understand how this will become a 2-hour argument you're going to have with me, because I can't physically understand how any American that's in their 30s and 40s is physically able to live their life without being able to read. Because how do you do anything? Not even just like road. I'm not saying like road signs. I'm saying like, how do you pay your bills? How do you text? How do you use a phone? How do you work? Like, even if you're doing labor work, you still have income, you pay taxes, you get sent mail, but you can't read it. I don't understand. Bro said, bruv, immigrants. You're a dumbass, right? You're not, bruv, immigrants. Bruv, immigrants. Have you ever heard of immigrants? Immigrants can fucking read, dummy, right? If you're saying there's a language barrier, that doesn't mean they're illiterate. That means they just don't speak English. That's a difference. Being illiterate means you can't read. You can't read at all. And so I think when I read that statistic where it's like 20% of Americans are illiterate, I think they mean they have a literacy level below that of a third grader, where they can read, but not to an extent where they can understand complex words. They're able to read a sentence that said the dog went to the park, right? They can read that. Look it up. I've done this. Oh my God, this is I will literally ramble about this the rest of the stream. 43 million Americans, or 21% of the population, have low literacy skills and struggle with basic literacy tasks and difficulty understanding basic printed materials. A significant portion of the population, 54% of Americans, read below that of a 6th grader. What? How? You're saying that would be segregation? Bro, that's a problem. That's not just an income thing. 54% of Americans read below a 6th grade level? A fucking 6th grader? What? You're lying. I don't understand how you get through life if you physically, like maybe, yeah, below of a sixth grader, if you have a fifth grade reading level, sixth grade reading level, yeah, you could get through life, right? You would have to look up words, but you can still text and shit. 21% of Americans can't read. What I'm saying is, like, you could say that's, lower income people, but that's also people that have access to public education. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense.
Women. There wasn't any real logic behind the opposition, so much as historical inertia. Similarly, the main reason that you were probably against giving
Oh my God, I'm proving this guy's point.
children the right to vote until 5 minutes ago is just that you've never really thought about it before. And on an emotional, gut instinct, non-rational level,
Bro, but that would piss me off. That would piss me off so much. If I'm standing in line at the voting booth and there's a fucking 5-year-old going, I'm ready to vote, I'd be like, dude, there's no way. I would actually start I would crash out at the voting booth. I would be, there's no way there's a 5-year-old that's getting up on the stage, bro. He's going to write in Mr. Beast. He's going to write in Mr. Beast. I can't do this.
that makes it seem silly. Just like women's rights seemed silly for men in the early 1900s. The core assumption of having an age or gender requirement for voting rights is that some people aren't smart or mature enough to vote correctly. But voting isn't something you can do correctly. Voting is how you exercise your basic right to be represented.
Yeah, it's your basic right to be represented, but I think the rebuttal is, yes, there's no right way to vote, but there is a conscious way where you understand what that person would do for you and would hurt you as an individual representing you in office, whether it be for Congress or just, presidential elections. It could be for mayor, it could be for House of Reps, it could be for Senate, whatever it is. You don't understand how they're repping you. But you could say that of base adults. That's why I'm saying, if anything, don't let everybody vote. You gotta mitigate that somehow.
If I vote for Logan Paul and he immediately fills the municipal water supply with prime energy drink and loses the annual budget betting on a meme coin, he's still my representative. My vote
Oh my God.
for him does not become less legitimate because he made what other people consider to be bad decisions. If you fundamentally believe in democracy...
Somebody made a good point. If you're under 18, you don't fully experience the consequences that occur when a new president is elected. I would agree with you, and I would say that occurs with people that are even older. If you still rely on your parents for the majority of everything after 18, up until, say, 21, 22, you are negatively affected by the president. Even below 18, you could be negatively affected by the president or positively affected, but in an indirect manner in a lot of ways, especially fiscally or financially, where if it would be through your parents would be the middle ground in that sense. If you're living off your parents, you live with your parents, they pay for your groceries, they do everything. If you voted for somebody that negatively affected the economy, that wouldn't overtly affect you. It would affect your parents, which would affect you.
Then denying citizens the right to vote is bad. That's Democracy 101. Denying them the right to vote because they're part of a group that you suspect, on average, have traits that will make them more likely to vote wrong is ridiculous and unjustifiable. Also, not that it really matters, but for adults whose jobs don't require a lot of thinking, like YouTubers, school is often the most intellectually demanding period of our lives. Mathematics, science, history, languages. School is an intense daily brain workout, and when you graduate, that knowledge starts to fade if you're not using it regularly. A big chunk of the population
I play puzzle horror games, okay? The cogs are spinning, the wheels are turning.
Are probably the smartest they'll ever be while in school as teenagers. Even if it were justifiable.
Oh my God, wait, stop. That's not even true of YouTubers. I get what he's saying, where it's like, you might have street smarts, but the most intellectually intelligent you will be is while you're in school. Even if your prefrontal lobe isn't fully developed, the sheer IQ would be highest when you're in school. But when you're out of school, your life experience is better. or more intelligent. I think that's the difference. One example that I would give that's not in the US is in China. They have a huge exam. What is the China exam called? The Gaokao is basically like the SAT or GPA in all 4 years of high school combined into like one big test. And like women will take medicines to delay their periods. They will stay up on IV drips for hours on end, studying 7 days a week for like 12 hours a day. Genuinely. It's insane. But a common thing that people will say is this, like years later, 40-year-olds in China could be like, I hated that exam, but it was the smartest I ever was in my entire life. Like just by sheer IQ. Like they knew the most, they were the most mentally with it in that time frame.
To deny less intelligent or less...
My counterpoint is high schoolers in the United States today, half of the time are stoners that don't study. So now you're getting into a bigger issue where, yes, if they were actually doing the work, they would be smart, but a lot of them don't. Half of my chat. Half of them don't.
Mature people the right to vote because...
Aren't you a stoner? Yeah, now. Not when I was in school.
They'll do it.
Well, when I was in college, but the latter half of college, not the first half.
No one is suggesting we apply that logic to adults. Actually, I would support voter competence testing for adults if the exam could be designed fairly, maybe by a nonpartisan committee who... Okay, cool. So from now on, only geniuses get to vote. What?
Oh my God, no, stop. Oh my God, stop. No. He's actually gonna... If he tries to fucking dismantle the point that I was making where there should be a test...
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want average people voting. They only make average decisions. People love intelligence-based voting.
Yeah, but the average person is the people that need to be represented the best. Oh my God, stop. Ugh.
Right. Until it turns out that...
I mean, it's right.
...that they're not smart enough to vote. Well, too bad. I believe that voting is an intrinsic human right from...
You would never be able to do that. I'm not saying this is something that is ever going to be done. You would never be able to tell the majority of Americans you can't vote, you're too stupid. That would cause like a genuine civil war.
Which the state derives its legitimacy. But you disagree. So from now on, only the smartest 1% of geniuses get to vote. And hey, why not replace those people with AI? The second...
And that would be really bad too. That would be really bad too. Because if you had the most intelligent people vote, they're going to... You're banking that they're moral. I'm going to dismantle my own point here. Say there was a test that you had to pass to prove that you had political knowledge. You're banking that that person cares about the average person. Because then they might vote in a way that only benefits them and hurts. It would be, going back to that one chatter, you'd be right. You'd be right. I'll admit that. Yeah, I'm not saying that this is the solution. I'm just saying the way that we have voting right now is definitely wrong. That's not true. If you had the most intelligent people vote, they would also probably have a higher income, more lean towards conservative financial values, potentially liberal economic values. And then in turn, it would fuck the economy even more. I would say, in long term. I realistically, I think the best way is just get rid of gerrymandering. I think if you get rid of gerrymandering, that fixes so many problems in the US. Because I think more people would be actually represented by their vote.
It starts beating them on the voter smarty pants test. All hail government.io. Democracy schmocracy. Who needs the consent of the governed when you can optimize bureaucratic decision making, am I right? So what, you just let everyone vote? Yes. Every citizen who is capable of expressing a clear preference between candidates should have the right to vote. But how would child voting actually work in practice? It's not like they can drive to a polling center. Okay, so number one, fundamental.
The biggest thing would be the issue of people voting for them. And the worry that they wouldn't actually be represented because the parent would be lying in some form. One thing that I will say, and I said this before when I voted for this past election. so 2024 for the presidential election. When I was standing in line, there was a dad and his son that came in, and his son was fully paralyzed, nonverbal, and the dad voted for him. And I'm not saying they didn't have a conversation or two, but that is a situation where people will sometimes argue that that son didn't vote and the dad voted twice, because how did they talk to each other about that? That would be generally that would be the same argument where it's like, hey, they didn't speak to one another because the kid is 1 or 2 years old and can't actually distinguish between the two. I don't know.
Parental rights don't need to be convenient to justify their existence. And number 2, have them vote in schools. Let political parties come in to give a little speech and distribute pamphlets in civics class during the election campaign. And make sure to randomize the candidate order on ballots so that people who vote impulsively won't skew the results. Actually, we should really be doing that anyway, just in general. Look, I genuinely believe...
Wait, what did he say?
And make sure to randomize the candidate order on ballots so that people who vote impulsively won't skew the results. Actually, we should really be doing that anyway.
Really? That's an actual thing that skews votes, is the fact that they might have, like, the same name on the top?
Just in general. Look, I genuinely...
Who the fuck would go take time out of their day to go vote impulsively? Why are you voting? I just wouldn't go. If you have no idea who to vote for and you're choosing gut decision at the ballot, that's wild. Like, at the fucking computer, you're choosing in that moment.
Believe in democracy. Not just as the least bad system of governance, but as an intrinsic human right. It's messy and it's stressful, and in every country on earth it needs serious reforms. But people have an absolute right to collectively control.
Oh my God, I just remembered when I went... You remember when I told this story? I don't even know if there's chatters that would remember this. Another thing that happened when I went to vote, there was a woman that was really old. Not really old. She was probably like 65, but I guess she had like ankle problems. She's like, I can't stand. I'm like, okay. She's like, I'm going to pass out. So we get her a seat. She sits down and just starts dry heaving, like right next to my feet. I was stun locked. I was like, what is happening right now? She's out of bed. She's going, ugh, ugh, and everybody's just staring. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, is she sick? I don't, that shit made me, I'm not like judging her for the fact that she needed to sit. If you're old, she couldn't stand. We were only standing for like 10 minutes, but like, you know, you're old, you have back problems, you have leg problems, whatever. You need to sit down. Why was she just like all borderline vomiting on me?
The government that controls them. Even if it would be more efficient to put a cabal of geniuses or a super intelligent AI in charge, efficiency is not the point. Universal suffrage. One person, one vote. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. I'll hang around to debate with anyone who makes a particularly good counter-argument. If you want me...
I need to see this. Came to this super skeptical, was persuaded. I don't know if I was super persuaded, but he made good points. I feel like if all ages could vote, this would greatly increase the amount of parents who try to indoctrinate their children to having their political ideology, but whatever means necessary. I fully agree with that. I think this is already an issue where parents view their kids as dolls and want to make them little thems, like a mini me, rather than, you know, their own individual person. Like, if you're going to have a child, you have to go into having a kid knowing there is a high chance that that kid will have drastically different views and aspirations than you. And I think a lot of parents don't like that and want to have their child be them, right? They, like, a lot of parents and people live vicariously through their kids, and so they're very upset when their kid doesn't want to do what they want them to do. And I understand, you know, there's certain things that you might hold near and dear that would upset you, whether it be religious or politics, but I think you got to let your kid be themselves, right? They're their own person. You're choosing to bring somebody into this world. Let them live, you know, let them be them. And a lot of people don't have that. And I'm sorry that you guys deal with that. I would say once you're an adult, obviously you could get the fuck out. But I mean, that's like one of the things that I really would want to hone in on when I'm a parent one day, is like letting my kid be themselves. Still fostering them to not be like, you know, a murderer, but also, you know, letting them choose what they believe politically, religiously. And obviously there's still going to be some bias. You can't fully remove that because they're going to be growing up with you, right? They're going to be growing up with you regardless of whether or not you shove your viewpoints down their throat and, you know, whatever beliefs you may have, politically, theologically, whatever it may be, philosophically. They're still going to obviously subconsciously be integrated to that. But he said there's still an incentive to indoctrinate children in the system we have now because children grow up to have full voting rights. Parents who indoctrinate into their children effectively would still eventually get the same increased voting power in the current system, just delayed by a few years. I think it would be more cultish, though. I think there would be a lot more issues because right now for parents, there's no rush. There's no rush to make your kid a mini-me. You have years to do it. But if your kid can start voting at the age of 5, you would treat them like they're a cult member. You would effectively brainwash them at an even younger age to try and believe what you believe because you want them to live the exact way you live, right? I think there's less pressure for parents that are crazy like that to do that when your kid's 5 because there's no reason to. So they start doing it later, but they would begin doing it even earlier, right? My concern in many cases, parents tell their children to vote for it. Yeah, I think that's like the biggest counterpoint is that it would just skew. It would I don't think it would actually change the election. I think if you allowed kids to vote, yes, they would be getting represented, but the broad majority of them would be voting what their parents vote for the first fucking 10 years of their life, 15 years of their life. Yeah, maybe when they're 12, 13, 14, they would go, hey, I don't want to vote for this person anymore. But like when you're 8 years old, you're not going to be like, no, Dad, I don't want to vote for George Bush. No, Dad, I don't want to vote for George Bush. I'm not a fan of George Bush. I want to vote for somebody myself. I don't like his values. I don't like his economic plan, Dad. I don't like what he's doing. What 8-year-old's going to fucking say that, right? I don't know. It's a good video, though. Facebook.